Okay, let me tell you first. When I became a parent, I not only had very little experience as a parent, I had none. I also had no experience watching people parenting. So I had no models to base uh, my expertise on, my soon to become expertise on. So I had no experience, and I'm also a fairly my approach to life is absolutely 70s. Let's do it and see what happens. So I went into this new situation in my life without any conceptions about how I ought to be. So, of course, what I did was simply what I remembered my parents doing, the good and the bad, but without thinking about it too much, because it came very easily to me. If a good parenting model is to let a child express himself, well, that was easy for me because I don't have any, I never had any interest in interfering with their natural paths, the ones they chose anyway. Didn't even bother me when one of our kids went on pot for a while. It drove their mother crazy, and but it didn't drive me crazy because I knew it was a very modern thing. I know she would want to do that.
As you look back on the way you were with your kids, I know you were very involved with them, but I know you were also very involved with your own career. But all the stories I've heard, as a family, you did a lot of things together. And it always sounded to me like there was a sweetness between you.
I think there always was.
Between you and your kids, and I see that.
It still is, and I don't. Yeah.
What kind of things did you do?
Well, first let me say that I never intended to be a certain kind of father. I did what came naturally, and I think what came naturally was mostly aping my mother and father, mostly my father. He was a very hands-off father. He was reliable. He was successful for a while.
He was kind.
Business until he wasn't. But he was always stable. And, well, I never stood in a closet and closed my eyes and asked myself, now, how do I want to be a parent? Well, I want to be open to their experiences. I never did that. I didn't know, since I never had sibs and I never faced the situation before. I sort of winged it, actually. I think I went in with what I had. It's like playing football and you're on the third team or something. You hardly ever play. You're the guy they send in after they've cleaned the bench, and they're thinking of putting in the bench. So I didn't lack any confidence about being a parent, but I also didn't have a program. I admit I read Dr. Spock. I didn't memorize Dr. Spock, but I read him. I got the sense of what he was saying. And the sense was reinforced by the TV programs he was making at the time. And there was just, on all of them, there was this big banner, relax, with an exclamation point. Yeah.
So you were involved in a hands-on kind of way with all three of them.
My memory says I was.
Yeah, good.
My memory's stronger about David because first time, Well, of course, with David, as they say, everything was a mystery at first, and everything was sort of exciting. I never thought of my experience with David as being difficult or unwanted.
Was it exciting?
I wouldn't say exciting. I'd say it was just great. I mean, I wouldn't use the word exciting.
Uh-huh.
When Marcella came along, and she started to develop, as a young child, when she was a young child, I wasn't as interested in her comings and goings as I had been with David. First, she was a girl, and I didn't have the identification with her that I had with him. I mean, I loved her a lot. She was adorable. She danced when she was 2 years old, but
you were quite enchanted with her. I've always had the feeling.
kind of
I've always had the feeling that you were rather enchanted with her. That she.
Yeah, there's something about your first daughter dancing on the bed and doing twirls and waltzes and so on. It's really appealing, And I adored her, and I still do. Marta, I don't remember my parenting as well. I think both Dallas and I knew more about parenting then. And Dolly's was getting close to being tired of being a parent, although she loved Marta a lot. So I had the easy part of the partnership, going to work. And I involved the kids always in my work when I could. When I had a company event, I brought them in. I got their pictures into the company magazine. This was New York life. And they were both really little. And I remember the pictures I submitted. I think David was in his crib then, or something. He was very young. And Marcella, of course, even younger. Marta got cut out of a lot of those things that she wasn't around yet.
Can't do it if you're not born.
Wasn't her fault. So I had a great time being a parent. We'd go to the Boyd Park over in San Rafael quite often on the weekends, and we'd picnic and horse around. And there was one episode where we were horsing around where I was chasing the two girls around a tree, and I slipped And I took off. And I saw their faces as I was sailing through the air. And they were terror-stricken. I mean, they were just holding their breath to see what was going to happen. And then I came down. They saw I wasn't hurt. And then they began laughing and laughing, having a wonderful time. So that was some kind of a breakthrough, probably for both of us, probably for the three of us.
Didn't you also used to, when you were still in New York, you went to the museums a lot on the weekends? I remember you telling me.
Yes. First we went because the museums were near the temple we were going to then. It wasn't really a temple, it was at the Ethical Culture Society.
Mm-hmm.
And we go from there either to Central Park, which was right across the street, or to the Metropolitan, which was on Fifth Avenue in the early 80s, and then to the Museum of the City of New York, which was what I was fascinated by.
I thought that, I remember you telling me you went to the Natural History Museum.
Went there too.
Because you would just go right up Amsterdam. Or
Yeah, Central Park.
Central Park.
West. Saw my role mostly as modeling what I thought a good parent would be like. And I never went much beyond that. I never asked myself if I was doing this right. I never asked for advice from anybody. I imagine I got a lot from my own parents. And I had an aunt and uncle who were doing everything wrong with their son. He was an adopted kid. And everything they had to do to tell him about it, that he was adopted, to encourage him to do well in school, nothing seemed to work out. I didn't have any of those problems. And I got to point out that my kids had a mother who was she was a strong person, and she knew what she believed in. And I knew I could fall back on her if anything serious came up.
That you could depend on her.
I could depend on her.
Yeah.
And we were together for quite a while after the kids were born.
Right.
So my role was sort of limited, and that suited my personality, and it suited the situation.
So what's it like now, being an old guy with these 3 adult kids, and your relationship with them as adults, I've been witness to, and I've seen it as very close and supportive and sweet. Them with you and you with them.
Yeah,
I've never ever seen or heard you angry with any of them. I don't know if that's even possible, but I never have witnessed that in 26 years. I mean, there's an accepting way that you are that is
I think you're right.
Supportive.
I was angry at anyone. I'd be angry at David. I don't remember being angry.
Why would you be angry at
Because
David?
he's the boy.
Oh. Even when you were alone and raising them, after Dolly's left, and you were here being the only parent with David and Marcella, I mean, you had to set limits. I know you set limits around music, You had some boundaries.
Yeah, music in the house has set limits. So limits that were more for me than them.
That's almost
So I liked a quiet house, so when I played my music, I could hear it. And they had music systems in their bedrooms, and I thought they could close the doors and listen to whatever they wanted, as long as it wasn't too loud.
And didn't it interfere with your listening to Haydn?
Yeah, I own that. I mean, I'm older, I'm entitled. And they bought into it. I mean, especially, except when I was out of the house, they knew I was coming back, but they didn't know how long it would be, so they would play it as loud as they wanted. And probably one of them was standing at near the front door, so he or she could see anyone coming. And they immediately turned down the volume and maybe even changed the music, to
That's not the
suit
story
my
I heard.
taste better. And all that worked, we all adjusted to it. For a while, I thought of myself as sort of a fearsome image to the girls. Because I could see they deferred to me more than David did.
Uh-huh.
They were all what we call very well behaved, whatever the hell that means. They never carried guns or got into gang wars.
And David and Marta never did drugs.
Never what?
Never did drugs.
Never did drugs.
Unlike my kids.
They didn't even try it, actually.
I know.
And I had no objection to drugs. I had my first hit of pot when I was an adult in one of the groups I was going to. And
Don't go down that path now.
hmm?
Don't go down that path for generations to.
Oh, God. I think if you interviewed the kids, they'd say the same thing. That they were pretty lucky that I didn't demand a lot from them. They knew I wanted good grades.
Oh.
I didn't want them to goof off in school, but that never came up, I feel like I should build in more conflict, but it wasn't there. I think we all had a very happy childhood.
And the big trauma was the divorce.
Yeah,
And that
of course.
just was huge.
And that was huge. I think
That was really huge.
it shut the girls down emotionally with me for quite a while. I don't know exactly when it ended. Some point I thought it was never going to end. A certain...
Shut down. The freeze out.
Yeah, being shut down.
No,
Being
it wasn't
wary.
a freeze out ever. It was never a freeze out. It was just a caution, wasn't it?
Well, I was there, and I'm telling you the way I felt.
Was it a freeze out? I mean,
That was my word.
No, it wasn't a freeze out.
Yeah, right.
If freeze out means they didn't answer me when I talked to them,
Yeah.
no, there never was. I didn't have to ask them to talk to me.
But they were upset.
Of course, yeah, and I knew that, and I knew there wasn't much I could do about it at the moment.
But the big difficulty was that Dolly's left with Marta and went to Panama, so that really shifted your relationship with Marta hugely, and it shifted the kids' relationships with their mother, and what the whole family unit got
That's right.
reconstructed, and that was very, very, very hard.
That was hard. It was hard mostly on Marta. Because the other two kids had the option of going back to Panama. Didn't want to. They were very firm about that. And they never wanted to play on the conflict between Dolly's and me. And I appreciate that a lot. And they never wanted to hear any criticism of her by me. And,
You were very respectful of that, weren't you?
yeah, of course. Yeah. How could I be otherwise? You know?
Well,
People are.
Yeah, I guess. I knew the kids were having a hard time. And I was certain it would work out with time. And it did. Went down to Panama with one or both of them, I think, twice. And made a vacation out of it. Went around to see Dolly's family.
after the divorce.
After the divorce. Got a picture of Marta as a little kid standing there, a two-engine airplane, you know, little thing. And I don't know why we were there, you know, but they got around. I think we've all been doing really well. I'm more relaxed at my age. I appreciate the kids more. I know that whatever they do will be supported by me.
A year ago, September.
Yes.
And I had to come home to get the house ready for you and to go back to work after I'd been in New York for 2.5 weeks. And Marta came to take care of you. What was that experience like? She came to the hospital, you were in rehab, she brought you home. She lived with us for 1.5 years and took a lot of care of you. So there was a role reversal here.
Yeah.
And I'm...
Long before I expected it to be necessary.
Yeah.
Marta was wonderful. And she did what had to be done. She was very commanding when she needed to be.
At the hospital.
In the hospital with the nurses.
We've seen over the last few years, even before the fracture, a shift so that all 3 of your kids are more involved with you in a caretaking role than, I mean, there's a role reversal that's happening. Certainly with David. When I was away, Marcella came to be with you and to take care of you. And I mean, there's sort of a sense of people, your kids, coming together to be in a different relationship with you. And I'm just wondering if you have anything that you think about that. Is that something you accept easily? Do you have trouble with it? Do you feel conflicted?
At the time, I was very grateful to them for making themselves available. Yeah. Sorry, I think you said it all, honey. They made themselves available.
Well, I think you feel the love from them.
Yeah, of course.
And the way you've parented is coming back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it just very sweet.
And it was great to see Marta more often, you know. No, my kids were great.
She had moved. she had been living in Spain,
Okay.
and she came back right when the recession hit, and she couldn't get work, and it was just a very, very hard period. So she lived with us, and she was here living with us when we were back east, and Bob fell, and then she stayed. And I don't even know how long it was, but it was close to 2 years that she was here living with us. And we worked all that out. Wasn't always easy for any of us, but we did do it.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
But it wasn't highly conflictual. I mean, it was just what we do for family. And there were times when it was a pain in the ass to her, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a time when it was a pain in the ass to me, and we talked about it. And as long as we could talk about it, that was the big deal. I mean, it kept it from being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she never complained about it to me.
Yeah, she did from time to time, but it wasn't serious. I mean, she wasn't complaining about you. It was the situation that was difficult. So I think you're better at receiving care than I would be. I've got to say, I'm so counter-dependent. But I think you've done a really good job of receiving what they have to give you and what my kids do.
Yeah, that was incredibly good. It was fun. I mean, our getting together was fun for Joan's whole crowd, I think.
Cast of thousands.
So my family got a lot bigger. And I think 10 years before that, I would never have bonded as quickly to strangers as I was able to do with them, because they were so accepting.
They were full-blown adults, and they'd been through a lot with me, so it could have been very difficult, but you seem to... I don't know. What was it like?
I mean,
what is it like being their stepfather?
it couldn't be better.
Mm-hmm.
Except I'd rather have Jeff around here so I could talk to him. It was seamless, really. We all got along really well. I saw the differences between the sons very clearly. And I saw that we liked each other a lot. I don't know why it was so easy. I didn't feel any pressure from Joan or from her kids or my kids to do anything a certain way that I wasn't doing already. I'm running the danger of making it sound more complex than it was, because it wasn't.
In answer to your question, again, if you think of one's development as a parent or as anything over time, you see it in a more dynamic context. Nothing stays fixed. Mm-hmm. So our contemporaneous relationships alter who we are in a particular way, and particularly for you because you're a 9. So you do merge into other forms of yourself and get through your attachments. Mm-hmm. And I think our attachment to one another and yours to some of your former teachers, and mm-hmm. like Jack and like Dick and people, that all shifts our orientation to ourselves and to the people we're close to.
That was really well said.
Thank you.
I hope the recorder is on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fixed gestalt.
Yeah.
You know, we come in one way and then we develop over time. Change. I mean, I'm not saying what direction it goes in. I'm not putting even a value judgment on it. I'm just saying that change is inevitable in those ways. Or it certainly has been here.
I can say without any false modesty, that's true.
I'm aware of how upsetting it was when Pete and Ann separated. How upsetting for both of us. And how attached you were to her, and I am to her. And how reattached we've become to Daisy. How much we love Daisy and admire her.
It's true. It's true. And Anne is remarried, and we see her every so often with her new husband, and we have a good time with him.
But she remains very important
Oh, yeah.
to us, to both of us. I mean, I've known her since she was 18. They met their first semester at UC Santa Cruz, and she was like my kid. You know, so it was a hard one.
Actually, I'm very moved just talking about it, because I know I've got a really big soft mattress under me if I ever fall. Somebody's going to step up.
Lots of people will step up. Many people will step up.
Probably the expression I use most often is how lucky I've been. And a lot of it is luck. I mean, I married into the right family, and I was able to take advantage of it. And the right friends, and so on.